Have you noticed how YouTube uses some fancy IDs for their videos in their URLs and how Bitly follows a similar approach with their shortened links? It's very easy for you to add such IDs to your next Laravel project. I'll show you why and how to use them. All you have to do is follow along this short video and you have it up and running in no time. What's up guys, and welcome to the Coders Cantina. My name is Mike and I'm your host tonight. If this is your first time in the Coders Cantina and you want to learn how to code web apps with Laravel and vue.js, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss anything. So how is it done? There is a small open source project called HashIds, which is implemented in nearly every programming language you can think of. It generates short, unique and non-sequential IDs out of numbers. It can convert something like this into that, or even an array of numbers like this into that. And the good thing about it, it can be decoded back into numbers. So it's an ideal candidate to obfuscate the primary keys of your models. And there are two reasons, and only two reasons, to do so. First, hiding the primary keys discourages an easy enumeration of your models. And second, it looks more professional, so it can hide the number of records in your database, which might indicate how popular your application is. I have prepared a small demo project in the latest Laravel version. If we take a look into our routes API file, you can see I've implemented two endpoints to access user profiles in a RESTful manner. Switching over to the profile controller, there are two corresponding methods: an index method, which returns a list of user profiles, and the show method returns a detailed user profile. Having a quick look into our profile list resource reveals that we're returning an ID, which is retrieved through the getRouteKey method, and the full name of the user. Hitting our index route in the browser shows that we are returning the user and exposing the internal primary key of our model. To access a detailed profile, we simply add the ID of one of the results to the URL and hitting the endpoint, and we get a detailed user profile. To get started, we use the package HashIds. I'll put the link into the description down below. Head over to PHP-Storm, fire up a terminal and type composer require HashIds, which will add the package to our application. Then we have to publish their configuration file with PHP artisan vendor publish and selecting their config tag. This will generate a HashIds file in our app config folder. As you can see, we have various variables we can influence to generate HashIds. First off, we have the salt. The salt is used in the algorithm and should be unique for every application. I also prefer to store it in an environment variable, so I can change it depending on the environment I deploy this application to. Let's call it HashIds salt and give it a reasonable default Coders Cantina. Then we have the minimal length of the resulting HashIds, which is 16. And finally, we have the charset, which is used as alphabet for the resulting HashIds. So if it's a requirement for an application to leave certain characters out, like lowercase L and uppercase I, which look similar, you can do this here. If you change one of these variables, the resulting HashIds will change dramatically. So please keep that in mind, as it could break your application if you change them later in production. As we have now finished the installation and setup, we can now use it in our route model binding. What is route model binding, I hear you ask? With route model binding, Laravel automatically injects models into your routes. Instead of injecting the ID, Laravel fetches the entire model that matches the given ID and injects that instance into your controller method. As you can see in our profile controller, we already make use of it. Heading to our user model, we can now add use HashIds to make our model ready to be accessed via HashIds. This trait converts incoming HashIds into their corresponding integer IDs, and now they can be retrieved by their primary key. On the other hand, they override the getRouteKey method, which we use in our API resources to return encoded HashIds. Hitting the endpoint in our browser, we can see The integer IDs are gone and we are using hash IDs. Also, hitting a detailed profile returns in a 404 because integer IDs won't work anymore. So using one of the returned hash IDs, and voila, we are ready to use hash IDs in our project. I can't emphasize enough on this topic. Using hash IDs will not add any form of security to your application. It will only obfuscate primary keys of your models. That's it. Keep that in mind. And always use API rate limiting, as otherwise it's still possible to enumerate through your models, as you allow unlimited tries to guess other IDs, even if you're using hash IDs. If you need any sort of protection, use signed URLs. Subscribe to the channel, there's a video on this topic in the pipeline. I've put a link to the demo repository on GitHub in the description down below. Let me know if this primer on hash IDs was useful for you and if you plan to use hash IDs in your next Laravel project. Also, if you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you the next time in the Coders Cantina.